cannot let perfection be the enemy of progress. I think so often we're all about this like all or nothing thing, which is just unsustainable to begin with.
Philip, welcome to the Seed of the Muse podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. So you are an award-winning Lebanese, Australian pastry chef and innovator in plant-based patisserie. You're best known as the former head pastry chef at Harrods up until last year, but you are also the founder of the artisan chocolate studio Khoury's and the author of A New Way to Bake and Beyond Baking. So
You got my
you approve.
yeah.
So welcome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited to have this conversation with you today. But before starting any session, I'd like to ask my guest one question. Imagine we're doing this in front of an audience. Who is one person you would like to see in your front row and why?
My mum.
Okay. Very quick answer.
Yeah, she's my biggest fan. And so often, I'm so lucky that, you know, when both my books came out, when anything major was happening, they were always there. She's just been, I always call her my MVP. She's just the most amazing person. I don't think I'd do anything without her.
That's amazing. Well, shout out to mom. So, you know, Phil, most of us think of pastry as something like that's indulgent and so pretty that it hurts to actually eat it. But behind it is like a very technical craft, you know, one of the most technical in food. And you kind of re-engineered it when you went, you know, from studying it in a classical way, but then making it, you know, plant-based. So I want to break into all of this because it really shows, you know, the story of you're innovating by first understanding the fundamentals and how it works. And I really love that. But so before we go into your whole journey, let's start at the beginning. When did you really realize you wanted to go into pastry, or how did you discover?
I remember two moments. One was kind of like the moment I decided to become a pastry chef. And that was, I'd always loved pastry. I remember some of my earliest memories are of family functions from when I was, you know, like really small. Yeah. And my grandfather would bring big trays of leeuwen, of knefe. Yeah. And I just always loved sweets. It was my favorite part of the meal. And there's something celebratory about dessert always, like in its nature. And I think by the time I was a teenager, I was baking a lot, and I was always a very creative person. But my parents, you know, I wouldn't say there was pressure, but I think there were expectations that I would do something professional. And so I chose to do graphic design and did a degree. And then by the time I finished the degree, realized, hang on, I think I really want to do baking. And I got to Paris and I went to Pierre Hermé and basically went into the shop and bought one of everything, and I'd saved for this trip, to go from Sydney, Australia to Paris. Yeah. And I remember sitting in front of a cathedral, the Saint-Sulpice church around the corner from the shop. And there was one particular dessert. And I remember the moment that I ate it, and it just felt like this religious moment, this experience where it's like, this is what I want to do. And I went back to Australia and started an apprenticeship straight away. And then I remember being in class on my first lesson and just thinking like, I'm in the right place. Mm-hmm.
What was that pastry that you had?
It was a deux millefeuille, which is the praline millefeuille that he did for the year 2000.
Okay, amazing. And so you went into this apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And then you probably, I guess, worked in different restaurants.
Yeah, so I started my first job in Key, which actually after 24 years just closed. It was the most awarded restaurant in Australian history. And I actually never wanted to work in restaurants. I always wanted to be a pâtissier that worked in shops in the retail environment, because I think they're the most rounded pastry chefs. But I did my first year there because they did the most exceptional desserts of any restaurant that I've been to this day. And I just went up to the back door and knocked on the door and said, can I get a job? And then that was the last time my family saw me for like 2 years because it was like super intense.
Okay, wow. And so what were some of maybe the hardest lesson you've learned early on that you maybe still carry with you today?
I think it's really important to have realistic expectations. And I knew that it was going to take time. I think overall my career progressed quite quickly. It's been 15 years now since I started pastry. But I think, don't do anything you're not passionate about. For me, it was always like I did pastry because I loved it. I don't think you can do it. It's just too hard to do if you don't love it. And yeah, with that love comes an absorption of knowledge and skills that you it's hard to explain. There was a lot of sacrifice, and there was a lot of that learning came at a cost.
Yeah, of course.
But I always saw it as an investment in my future.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And so, there are a lot of people, I would say, including myself, because no, I don't bake, but that love to bake, at home.
Yeah.
Some might think, oh, I really want to do this as a full-time job. Others will just do it as a passion and a hobby. For those who actually want to make it their life career, what are some advice that you would have for them to take the next step out of their kitchen?
I think do it as a hobby until you can't do it as a hobby anymore. I think some things are meant to be hobbies and they're meant to be enjoyed. I think it's a whole nother thing to take it to a professional level. But I'm always surprised. Like I see so many people do really amazing stuff at home and then they go and open a shop.
Yeah.
The path is not as linear as I think people once thought that it was. But I think in the traditional sense, it is quite, it's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good to invest in some classes, learn some fundamentals, but don't expect to learn everything from that. It's all in application. And this is why I'm such a fan of the apprenticeship model, because you go to school 1 day a week or 1 week per month, and the rest of the time you're learning on the job. And it is slow, but you kind of have to embrace that, because that's where mastery starts to creep in and you start to learn things. I think in that first restaurant job, I made the same dessert 16,000 times in the year that I was there.
Wow. Did you have to try it every time?
No, but I tried at least one every day.
Yeah.
And there was one cake. Sometimes I'd have 2 per day. I put on like 10 kilos after a year. I'm not joking.
I mean, I can imagine, to be honest.
I went in being like quite thin.
Okay.
And then, I was always quite a slim person. Mm-hmm. And then I remember my head pastry chef saying, that's going to catch up with you one day. And then I remember finishing that job just being so full.
Yeah. And you're like, that's the day.
Yeah.
I mean, fair. But yeah, to your point, I agree. I think it's not as linear, and there are different avenues also thanks to social media potentially, because, you can bake stuff, show it in a nice way, on your TikTok, your Instagram, and then people just want to, try it and reach out. And so you start small somewhere, on a Deliveroo, in a little market, and then it grows from that. And I think that's cool. But I do agree as well that fundamentals are super important, because for me, the way I see like food or chef is really like kind of you're in a chemistry lab, because there's a lot of, action reaction to the things that you mix together.
Yeah. Baking is an applied science. And I think there is absolutely no way that I could have, innovated or tried to do what I'm doing without having understood the fundamentals of how ingredients work, whether they be plant-based or not. Yeah. You have to know how baking works and how ingredients interact. And so without that really intensive foundation that I was super lucky to have, I just simply wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah. No, I mean, that totally makes sense.
Doing what I'm trying to
do. Successfully.
Well, I'm trying. Thanks.
And so you eventually became head pastry chef at Harrods, which is huge in the culinary world. I think it's, for those who might not realize it, that's like high volume, ultra luxury, global clientele, and zero room for error. How did that opportunity come about? Yeah,
so I'd say there aren't that many places in the world where I always talk about these 3 levers, and in any environment, these levers exist, but they're kind of pushed to different levels. And you have quality, variety, and volume. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing really high quality, you're probably not able to do the volume or the variety. Mm-hmm. But in places like Harrods, everything is pushed to the limits. You're doing, up to 200 different unique products leaving the kitchen every single day. All to a very high degree of quality, with a lot of innovation and volume as well. So there are a few places that do that successfully, and I happened to be in a place that was similar. And I think when the opportunity came up, I remember being in Europe for a rugby tournament, and someone said, "Oh, you should while you're in London, visit Harrods. And I did. And then a week later, I had a job offer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Came for the rugby, stayed for the pastry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love that. And so you joined there. Obviously, you have to climb the ranks to become the head, or did you immediately?
Yeah, I came in as a sous chef, as a pastry sous chef, and then a year and a half later got promoted.
Wow, that's amazing. And at what point did you make the switch to plant-based?
That was always actually something that I did from the start of my time at Harrods.
Okay.
And at first it was just because they had nothing, and it wasn't something that I was particularly passionate about, but I am passionate about having more options and expanding our horizons, whether they be plant-based or not. And I remember coming in and there was just nothing, like not a single plant-based item on the menu anywhere. We had an afternoon tea, but it was just like the bare minimum. And I just thought, for a place like Harrods, with customers like we have at Harrods, that they deserve more.
Yeah.
And so I just made it my mission to do some stuff. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, it has to be really good. Otherwise, what's the point? And so I started from a place of, I'm not trying to make it vegan. I'm just trying to broaden our horizons, develop the desserts to be as good as they can be. And, you know, when we did tastings, I would never lead with, oh, here is a vegan something. I'd just be like, here is a dessert for a new range. And then, you know, at the end, I remember the first time my head chef said, oh, come on, tell them. And I was like, tell them what? They're like, oh, by the way, it's vegan and, you know, this and that. And everyone was like, what? Because it was just so unexpected.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's like the expectation bias. When someone labels it as vegan, you expect it to taste less good.
And, you know, when we launched those first items, they didn't sell.
Really?
I remember after a week, we were saying, like, what's going on? It turned out that in the label, they said vegan, whatever. And we took it out of the title and just put it at the end of the description. And the next week it was like a top 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when people don't see the label, they don't have this the perception is not altered essentially by the label, and that makes a...
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it has to be good. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the menu 7 years later.
No, of course.
And I think it's like, that's the fundamental thing. So often it's done because it's to tick a box. And that ultimately leads to compromises, because people who generally do it are ticking a box and they're not interested in a good experience. But I think that's changing as well. Okay. People are definitely more interested because the tools and the knowledge are more available.
And do you think there's more education around it?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the last few years there was a big boom, but also a big crash, you know. Again, when it becomes a tick box, a box ticking exercise, people compromise. And I think we saw a lot of ultra processed food in ingredients in food. So that was definitely, people are now more turned off than they probably were originally, which is why I'm so passionate about the specific approach that I have, which is to use only naturally plant-based ingredients that we always used, just minus the eggs and dairy. Okay,
amazing. And so how does the R&D kind of look like, you know, when you're trying to create those, bringing them to, you know, people at Harrods before they go to the clients, like how do you test and try and make those changes? Like, I'm just curious.
Lots of trials. Yeah. I think, you know, the dessert can go through 5 tastings before it launches. But before it gets to the tasting, we would always want it to be there. Otherwise, it's embarrassing to have to go back and forth. Yeah. Like, it's a point of professional pride. We would want to have it like as close to final as possible. And then there'd just be like small tweaks, whether it be in decoration or, you know, tweaking ratios of something, but the texture, the flavor was finalized before we got to that point.
Okay, and that makes sense. What is the hardest hardest pastry to make into plant-based?
Well, when I worked on my last book, there was I spent more time on one chapter that didn't make it into the book than I did on the rest of the whole book. Wow. And that was a 2-year like writing and trial and experimentation process. And it was choux pastry.
Choux pastry. Oh, okay.
Something so simple.
Yeah. Why?
So I was able to do it and get good results, but not satisfying the criteria that I set for myself, which is to only use really natural, clean, plant-based ingredients.
Okay. So if we ever see a choux labeled as vegan, it's fake. Like, it cannot be, or it's not good.
I wouldn't say it's fake. No, I think it's a different criteria.
Okay.
Different. Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll take it back. Not fake. And so just by the nature of having to do so much like, research and trial and error, and, it's kind of a new category or a new way of doing, does that automatically mean that in general, things labeled as plant-based, vegan are more expensive? Or like, because technically you're removing ingredients, but I tend to see that those versions that promote a healthier, lifestyle are more expensive.
I mean, it can be, but I don't think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be because we're talking about novel ingredients, things that are not yet mainstream. So, we've been making milk chocolate with milk powder for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the economies of scale will change. But generally speaking, like depends on the product. There are things that are definitely cheaper. When you're using olive oil and water and flour and sugar as opposed to butter, it's different. There are things that are just comparative, but I don't think they should be more expensive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. And so what are some things maybe that you learned at Harrods that you couldn't have learned, when you did your apprenticeship or worked in a restaurant or the pastry shops in the early days?
I think in Harrods, I learned a lot about people and managing people. In Harrods, there was sometimes up to a team of 60 full-time staff that you interacted with within the immediate team. Yeah, definitely about people, about stakeholder management, which is a funny word for a pastry chef to be saying. But in a place like Harrods, there are so many things that it takes to get some things over the line. And I think when you're trying to like get new equipment or, do things a bit differently, there's a lot of people that you have to try and take on that journey. So yeah, probably that.
Okay, amazing. And then if we take it on the side of the actual baking and preparing, what are some things maybe, I don't know if Harrods equipped you with tools that you didn't have before or things you maybe learned, being in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, definitely systems and rigor that come with, I think my skills up to that point were quite strong in the recipe development process, but in terms of costings, administration, things like that, they would, you couldn't run a place that big and that complex without a lot of structure.
And so obviously, you have a lot of, whether it's chefs, pastry chefs, that kind of stay in the kitchen, but you turned your knowledge into, books, into your own product with now your new venture. How was that journey of writing your own book? And when did you realize that, your knowledge would be valuable beyond the kitchen?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think I always wanted to have my own business from when I started. And you kind of lose sight of that dream because you get to be creative and experimental at someone else's cost, at someone else's expense, sorry. And I remember thinking, I'd love to do a book one day, years ago, but only if I have something to say. I don't want to just write a book for the sake of writing a book. And I remember, as my passion and skills grew with plant-based, that I wanted to share something that could equip pastry chefs like me who are looking for a specific approach for new tools and recipes that they could make their own.
So the book is more tailored towards chef?
No, it's actually not.
Okay.
So it's funny. I think chefs have found it most useful.
Okay.
But because they cover so many basics and sort of classic things that people like, but it was written to be as accessible as possible.
Okay.
So some of the criteria that I set for myself were that the ingredients had to have been used and globally available for at least 150 years. So there were things that there are no new ingredients, and they're all things that exist in a very pure and consistent form universally. Okay. So or globally. So, we won't go intergalactic yet, but at least you could get plain flour, you could get sugar. These are things that you can get, and I would never use a margarine, and that's why I avoided laminated pastry and viennoiserie until the second book, until I was comfortable sharing a recipe that people could produce from scratch from those basic ingredients. Because the thing that happens so often with substitute ingredients is that they, you can buy it from one manufacturer who has a formulation and they can change it without telling you. They have no obligation to keep things the same. And a lot of the time, an ingredient that you can get in one country just isn't available in another.
Yeah.
And in baking, it's so precise, you can't just make a direct swap. So yeah, I really wanted to make sure that it was as accessible as possible to as many people as possible.
Yeah. Did you ever, I'll come back to the book, but it's like parenthesis, did you ever feel it and when you were, making a pastry, that the batch maybe that you received of, flour had changed from that same manufacturer that you go to? Do you notice it?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah?
You do. When you're doing something so often,
Okay.
A lot of bakers will struggle with flour, for example, when they do viennoiserie, especially because it is so, the precision, the fermentation is so precise, the lamination is so precise, and the strength in the dough, which comes from how the flour is milled and blended, can change seasonally. It's a living product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a thing.
Okay, interesting. And so your book came out, not long ago, but you were still at Harrods. The pastries that you created under, their roof, do they belong to you or to them? And so in that sense, can you write about it
that's
under
a really interesting question. Absolutely. So when you work with most employers, you'll sign a IP clause in your contract, and anything you create while you work there is their property.
Okay.
But I got an exception for the book that I'd be able to work on the book and share my own recipes, and that I would retain ownership of them.
Okay, amazing. If there's something from, when writing the book that you think will like pique interest for the listeners, maybe what is one thing you can share, of substitutes or a specific recipe that's interesting?
Ooh, maybe I can tell you a bit about the process of getting a book deal.
Yeah, of course.
And how it actually shaped my approach.
Okay.
I went to every publisher in London, every agent. The thing most people don't know is that typically you have to get an agent first.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So an agent who's going to represent you in discussions with a publisher. Some don't need it, but it's very good to, especially if you have no idea about the publishing industry. And because if I'd signed the first deal that I got, I would have made nothing from it.
Because of the structure of the
advance was awful, and the royalties were awful. So you will get paid in advance in 3 installments when you sign, when you submit your manuscript, and because they're basically paying for the rights to publish the work that you're proposing.
Yeah.
And the royalties, you basically just want to make sure that you're covered either way, that you're going to either get a good advance or you're going to get royalties at a reasonable rate that
will compensate.
Because at the end of the day, it should even out. And the first deal they offered was so poor that I would have gotten a shit advance and then got nothing after the book came out. And I was so lucky that the book did so phenomenally well. I think it's been reprinted 7 times and translated. And yeah, it was worth it in the end. But if I'd signed that first deal.
Okay, wow. And so what was different about the second deal? Or did you find an agent for yourself?
Yeah, so you worked with the same agent, but this time you're a known quantity.
Okay.
And they know how well your first book did, and there's a measure. So yeah, I think it was like 5 times what I got in the first time.
Okay.
But the thing is, I got this book deal. My first approach was to do something for professionals because I'm a professional pastry chef. I wasn't really interested in doing something for home bakers.
Thank you.
And but I could not get, no one was interested. They're like, we love you, we love what you might be able to do, but we just don't think this concept is right. And then my agent convinced me to basically make it accessible. And in retrospect, it had such a profound impact on how I wrote and what I wrote and even how I do pastry. And yeah, it's all down to that initial challenge.
Yeah, interesting. So then you tailored it to a different audience, essentially. Wow.
It ultimately did end up helping pastry chefs because there's such a gap in that sphere. There's a knowledge gap.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest gap, or something that, is important for people to know if they're starting on this journey of, converting the pastries that do into plant-based ones?
Follow the recipe.
Buy the book and follow the recipe.
Just follow the recipe and then play around with it.
Okay.
Do simple swaps to start with. Like not everything is interchangeable. A lot of stuff is not interchangeable. Follow the recipe. I remember there were arguments over whether the book would contain cups and spoons.
Okay.
And we decided, I said no, I couldn't do cups and spoons. We did weights, so grams and ounces, and small measures we did in measured teaspoons, so like actual quarter teaspoon, half teaspoon, etc. Because there's just too much margin of error if you're measuring things. And there is not a single reputable kitchen that I know that would write recipes in cups and things like that. It's just not scalable or consistent.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe
like even in America, a professional kitchen uses grams and weights and measures, not.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to think
but believe it or not, American bakers, home bakers, are very reluctant to use scales.
Yeah.
It's just not in their.
It's not in the.
It's just not how they do things.
Yeah, I mean, same for at least for me. I use cups when I cook. I mean, I don't cook well, so maybe that's the issue. Because every time, I swear, I've been in London for 6 years. I changed homes 6 times, so different oven every time. I tried the same banana bread recipe in all of my ovens, and it would just not work. I swear, and I think my friends just they gave up on me because I would send them pictures of all the different banana breads I would do, and I would always blame it on the oven. And then I don't know if it's the cups I use, the issues with measurements, issues with the ingredients, but I'm definitely 100% sure it's the oven and not me, because when I do it in Lebanon, it just works.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you my recipe. It's got 5 ingredients.
I will try it in the new oven.
Do it.
And then I'll let you know.
I mean, yeah, I personally, for example, don't like gas ovens.
Okay.
I just don't think they.
Why are they
very different type of heat, a very different way of measuring heat. I feel like it's not as consistent. Whereas I think with a fan, you have a little bit more, like you set a temperature and yeah.
Interesting. I guess there are nuances to everything, and a single shift in one of the different steps of your process can really change the
definitely
the pastry.
And you believe it or not, a lot of thermostats are not right.
Really? How did you figure that out?
Unless you have I guess at least a mid to high end, mid-range oven to high end oven that has a thermostat, digital temperature monitoring, it's better. You'll have better results if you use an oven thermometer, and they're quite cheap. You put them in, especially in gas ovens. I think it's quite useful. And they just tell you what the actual temperature is.
Okay, interesting. Good tip.
Yeah.
Maybe I need that. And so obviously, you had your book, but you didn't stop there. So you left Harrods last year, and now you've created your own venture, Khoury's.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only one who pronounces it right when you speak to someone here.
Well, we just say Khoury's.
Okay, Khoury's. I can do that.
That's all right.
And can you tell me a bit about now how it was? So you went from being, a pastry chef, but now you wear also the founder's hat because, you're building your own thing alone. Yeah. How are you juggling both while staying creative?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think for now I'm keeping things as tight and as under control as possible. There are, we ran for 6 months at, I would say, unsustainably. Sometimes you just have to make hard decisions. And yeah, it's to be honest, it's a big learning curve for me. I think there's a very big difference between working for someone and having all the administration side of things and business management done for you, versus doing it all yourself.
Yeah.
Basically. So a learning curve, and just finding people who can supplement those skill sets, finding a good accountant, things like that.
So you're finding people to, you're outsourcing the parts you
slowly
don't know.
Yeah, I think especially as we go toward a physical space, which is on the horizon, that is going to be more crucial than ever, because I can, it's a kitchen, a team of 3 people, that is quite manageable. But as soon as we go into serving customers on site, that's a completely different.
And so can you tell me then a bit how does it look now? Because I see that you don't have a physical store, but you have, different chocolate bars for different cities.
Yes.
And you started with the Beirut chocolate, right?
So Beirut chocolate is just over a year old now. To almost the week. And it's funny because my goal was to leave and open a bakery.
Okay.
Last year. And then the beginning of the year, I did this bake sale, a charity fundraiser, and I did the Beirut chocolate there. And I posted it on Instagram like a week later, and then it just went viral.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then next thing you know, I was like in Lebanon launching it at a trade show, and then meeting the president, the first lady,
No way.
and doing all this stuff, and just realizing, oh, maybe I should like actually make this available. And so it went from a charity thing, and there's definitely a charity component still to it. But I thought, oh, maybe it's time I do that first. It's a much smaller test user case.
Yeah.
And then, a bakery is literally 10 times more expenditure, more investment, more staff, more risk. So I thought we'll start with confectionery, and then while I work towards the bakery.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Because I was going to ask, you went from, pastries to just chocolate. Does that not limit you in your
Yeah. So I've always
skills?
Practiced both skill sets. I've always considered myself a patissier and a chocolatier or confectioner as well. But it was always something that I was going to do as part of the range. But I guess I just led with that first for practical reasons.
Okay. And like on the side of, the creative aspect and how you choose the cities and then the flavors that represent it, can you tell me a bit about it? Like, it's so interesting because I saw I think it was the Beirut one that has like avocado.
That was the Sydney one, avocado toast. Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, oh, I have to try this.
So we basically started with places and cities that are meaningful to me.
Okay.
And now we're branching out this year. And I think this could go on for a long time. Every month we launch a new flavor.
Okay.
And so I think we're now up to like flavor number 7.
Okay, wow.
And
which is the horse one, right? For
the year of the horse. We did Hong Kong and black sesame and candied tangerine.
Looks so good.
And we kind of try and align it with the seasons, with the holidays, and as much as possible. So, for example, the next one is going to be, when does this come out?
When do you want it to come out? Probably next month.
Next month is good. So we'll be doing Doha.
Okay.
So we're doing like a cardamom coffee and date.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we'll do something really interesting and fun for April, because that's when Easter will fall.
Yes.
So we're trying to just tie in the seasons and the main holidays at the same time.
Okay.
But I think for Easter, we're going to have a lot of fun. We have like an expanded range coming out. So
okay, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And how are you enjoying that process of, having your own, I guess, flexibility now?
I love it so much. As challenging as it is, I probably never worked harder in my life.
Okay.
But it's the most fun I've ever had. And I think when you do it for yourself, it's totally different. It's totally different and completely fulfilling. Like for my team, I have very reasonable and very realistic expectations, high standards, but they get to come into work Monday to Friday from 8 till 4, which I think are unheard of in sort of hospitality.
Okay.
And so they get to have a nice time. But I'm the one coming in on the weekends,
yeah.
Designing, because I design with my design background. I design all the molds. I produce them in house.
Wow.
So it's just so much more. I have a lot of flexibility and a lot of fun over everything that we do.
Okay. Yeah, because they're super nice when they look like postcards, or they have different shapes. They're really nice. That's true. You put your graphic design hat on, so it's not gone to waste.
No, it's funny. For years I was like, oh well, that was a waste.
Yeah,
and I loved it, and I really thought that's what I was good at and what I wanted to do. And then I remember just being so committed to pastry, especially in the early years, that I didn't even touch it. I remember not touching my laptop for like 2 or 3 years.
Wow, a job without touching a laptop.
I know.
Wow.
I know. I mean, I didn't see my family for 2 years while I worked in restaurants, so it was.
Yeah, it's tough, like you said. A lot of sacrifices. What is the part you enjoyed the most in this whole process?
Coming up with new things,
for
sure. Yeah. There's like, I'm working on a popcorn, like chocolate.
Okay.
And the ingredients are corn, like popcorn, cocoa butter and sugar and salt. So it's just like taking the simplest, purest little ingredient list and transforming it into something really fun and exciting.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so you mentioned, sugar, you mentioned it before. In my mind, when someone says, maybe vegan, plant-based, we automatically associate it with like healthier and so like less fatty.
Well, look, I can tell you one thing, it doesn't have cholesterol. But the sugar is there.
Sugar is there, yeah.
Everything is there.
It doesn't mean, it's not going to make you gain
it's cholesterol free, but it's definitely not sugar free.
Yeah. That's the point to make. And so how do you Like, can you resist, trying all of these things? And then how do you stay fit, in this job?
Staying fit has probably been the biggest challenge of the past 15 years. My weight has at times just fluctuated like 10 kilos back and forth. Wow. Literally 10 kilos. And that has like real life implications. But that's exercise is the first thing that I deprioritize when I need time. Okay. But I'm trying to change that.
Okay. Yeah. New resolutions.
I'm still learning. Yeah.
Okay. Step by step. I feel like now with your like new, videos of like meeting in the park or walking, you can just walk and then you're putting in your steps.
Yeah. I mean, I have a rule. I'm on the 3rd floor of an old warehouse building.
Okay.
And there are 6 flights of stairs to get there. And I never get the lift unless I have like a lot of stuff with me. I always get the stairs and I have to go between the 3rd floor and the 1st floor. So up 4 flights.
That's good exercise.
Every day. Yeah. And I walk everywhere. I do try and exercise.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so did you ever feel like, or do you fear maybe being boxed as a plant-based baker, or are you, that doesn't really...
I don't talk about it.
Okay.
This is probably the most I've spoken about it in a while.
Really?
I don't like to talk about it. I mean, I'm a pastry chef at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm not against eggs and dairy. Mm-hmm. I just think we need to broaden our horizons. And I feel like for me, I'm really keen and happy to go all in on that. Mm-hmm. And I think eggs and dairy exist in our diets for a good reason. Yeah. But I think there was a point where we just took it a bit too far, mm-hmm. and our reliance became unsustainable on the primary industries that produce them. I think a lot of people don't understand or appreciate what goes into our foods.
Yeah.
I think the closer you get to seeing it, the more shocking it is, and the more you can't unsee it. People don't realize that you have to milk a cow for a whole day, mm-hmm. to get 20 liters of milk to make 250 gram block of butter.
Wow.
And that block of butter will make 8 croissants.
8?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that scale is gone when you can just go into a supermarket and just pick it off a shelf. Mm-hmm. So I'm not against it. I just think like I'm more interested in finding, using other ingredients.
Yeah. No, I mean, totally fair.
Yeah. And you know what? Like I don't like talking about it because I think it can put people off. Like I'm not here to tell you how to eat or what you should eat or what recipes you should make. I'm mm-hmm. just here to like make options that are really good that you want to make, yes. because they're delicious and they're interesting and innovative, not because someone told you, I told you to. Like,
yeah.
They just have to be good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so how do you, because obviously you've worn different hats. How do you evolve without diluting maybe who you are and what you're like building all along?
I think values are really important, knowing what's important to you and just sticking to them. And I've had very strong feelings for a long time, but I'm always open to learning and to new messages and even to compromise, because I think we just cannot let perfection be the enemy of progress. I think so often we're all about this like all or nothing thing, which is just unsustainable to begin with. And I think, we do have to just take it one step at a time, one dish at a time, and do what works. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know, I guess speaking of fitness, whenever I go hard at the gym, I go hard for like 3 days and then I'm out for like a week. So what's working for me at the moment is going 5 or 6 days a week, doing 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is better than nothing. It's not great, but mm-hmm. at least like I keep going. So it's just what works in real life. And life is hard. We don't need to make it harder.
No, I agree. But that's what you're doing is more consistent, because you're starting, with smaller steps that are more realistic and will help you be disciplined rather than, pushing yourself extremely hard and then just not being able to sustain it. And I think that applies in a lot of things in life.
It was a hard lesson to learn. Like I'm quite an obsessive, perfectionistic person. So yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah. So what is your favorite dish to make, or like pastry to make?
Ooh, I do love making a creme brulee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just like quite simple, quite delicious. I love making creme brulee. I love chocolate. I love using chocolate as an ingredient. I love playing and making things out of chocolate. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then what is the hardest to have made into a plant-based?
Yeah, definitely choux pastry.
Okay, yeah, we said that one. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Honestly, it's so fascinating. And I feel like, when you work around, chocolate and ingredients and pastries, etc., you can get at some point not repulsed by it because, you love it, but do you never get a sense of like, I can't see all of these anymore, or like I can't try, different iterations?
Like anything, you can get bored of things.
Yeah.
But for me, I'd rather be talking about how I'm making chocolate out of popcorn or out of pistachios and cocoa butter than talking about, it's vegan. Like it's for me, it's about the approach and the innovation and the interest, or like making croissants out of olive oil. I think.
How does that work?
Yeah, you make your own butter with olive oil and cocoa butter.
Okay.
And there's this like method to emulsifying the butter essentially. And then the rest is, the process is the same. In my book for home bakers, I have a very simplified approach that gives maximum chance of success, whether you're doing it with real, dairy butter or the olive oil butter. But like it's just finding new ways to use old ingredients.
Yeah, that's so cool. Where do you find your inspiration? When you say, you like the part of finding new things to do, where do you get your inspiration from?
It comes from so many different angles. It comes from what I'm trying to achieve. It comes from the ingredients themselves. It comes from, there's always we've had 300 years to get pastry to where it is using the ingredients that we have. And then it's just like trying to replace a function or an ingredient. And it's just, there are so many different things that come into play. And especially in the book, I remember getting to 3/4 of the way through and then unlocking an innovation or an approach to dealing with an ingredient that then reinforms how you finish the book, or you go back and have to rework recipes because you've found a better way of doing things. So it's like a live process.
Yeah.
And there are definitely things that I did in the first book that I wish I could have done differently, knowing what I now know.
Okay, like what?
Like, little things, but yeah, little things.
Okay. That's so cool. When you did, so I saw that, with your book, you did a few like one-day events, like for example, at Middle Child in Dubai, because I saw that one, because I went there after you did it, expecting to see some chocolate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't realize it was one day.
Yeah. It was one day.
Yeah. And
but
so
we're working on something.
Okay.
Hopefully we can get.
Okay. So is your goal to one day, be in restaurants? No. Okay. You would rather have your own like shop. Okay.
I think the business side of things dictates that, if I want to sell my products at a reasonable price, I have to sell them myself, because as soon as you start cutting the margin up or pricing it to facilitate that the margin that retailers require, the product ends up being super high-end luxury pricing because of the quality of ingredients that I use, that I think makes it less accessible. So if people want to buy directly from me, they'll, at least I can offer a upper middle price.
Yeah.
Because I guess if they're happy paying a super expensive, price point, then fine. But I'm quite happy to sell people things directly.
Yeah. Well, no, fair. So I guess I won't expect to see it.
I don't know. These days, sometimes when you see things everywhere, it makes them less special.
I agree.
I think, the fact that you can go to, you can't walk out of an airport without seeing Toblerone. I mean, Toblerone was always a mass market product, but yeah, I think there are some things that are just nice that you can only get them.
I agree.
In a place. And for me, that my base is London. So.
Okay. I agree. Like scarcity creates value ultimately, and when you see something a lot, it just degrades.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not intentional.
Yeah, no, of course.
I just want to do things at a manageable, sustainable level. So for me right now, that's in one or two places, not in, not everywhere.
Perfect. And so in like comparing.
I would love to have it everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
But the economics.
The economics don't make sense now. Yeah. I mean, that's totally fair. You have to have your hat of, looking at the financial aspect of it as well, just as much as, looking at the innovation in the product and the, baking.
I mean, there are products that we could scale up and that we could produce within other local markets, but that's a whole other thing. And I'd rather be spending my time innovating and having fun and giving people amazing new products than spending my time,
No, that's recipes. So cool. Honestly, like your chocolates, I haven't seen anything like it before.
Oh, thank you.
And that's why I'm like, it's so interesting because you mix together flavors that really do, make you think about the city, you're targeting, for example. And it's just so interesting how they're combined.
Thanks.
And they also look nice. I feel like, when you're in culinary school or, you do the studies to become a chef, you don't really learn how to maybe market yourself. You learn how to bake and how to apply and how it works, but you don't really learn the second part, which is as essential. But I think you do a great job at that. Like I see your videos.
That's the communication design degree coming in handy.
For you, that worked but it came because you started with that rather than you learned it when you started, your culinary journey. And I think that's it's as important. And I think the way you do it is so fun and interactive, because you take us behind a bit the scene. We see the chocolate. They're like, I just want to eat the screen.
Thanks.
So hopefully I will get my hands on, those chocolates. I mean, they won't be available in front of me, but
I got one for you.
That's so nice. But for our listeners, they can go online, right?
Yeah, it's just Khoury's, KHOURYS.co.
Yes, I'll put the link in the show notes anyway. But thank you so much, Phil. It was so cool to speak to you. Thank you so much,
Corinne.
And it was great doing this. Now I can't wait to try this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You've been listening to The Seat of the Muse, and I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. If something stirred you today, a thought, a feeling, a question, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, leave a review, and even share this episode with a friend. Your support truly fuels this space and helps invite more voices to sit down with me. Until next time, stay curious.